morning, students. Let's start with the second narrative from chapter 3, two stories about flying. Earlier, we did the first one, that was his first flight, and now this is the second narrative, The Black Aeroplane, written by Frederick Fawcett. This chapter it revolves around a mystery who was another pilot. Sometimes, when we are facing a problem or we are in some trouble, we pray to God or the power we believe in to send some help, and most of the times, probably we fail to understand that the help lies within us because God is with everybody, and this is our own, most of the time, this is our own confidence and it is our own determination that comes as a rescuer in the testing times. But here, mysteriously in this story, let's see what happens. Who was another pilot? The storyteller, he was on his flight to go to England because he wanted to have breakfast with his family. And during the flight, he saw a great storm coming, clouds, but they were looking as giant as the mountains. But because he was so eager to go and meet his family, so he did not take into notice the danger and didn't want to go back to Paris from where he was coming. Then he entered those cloudy mountains and he saw another aeroplane without lights on its wing. It was a black aeroplane. The pilot waved his hand to the narrator of our story and he asked him to follow. The narrator followed that another pilot because his compasses and radio and radars, everything had gone dead. Even there was not enough fuel in his tank. With the help of another pilot, he landed safely. And when he went to the receptionist to thank the pilot, he was told by the lady that there was no any plane flying in the sky that night. That was something strange and mysterious for the narrator. Now let's see how the story unfolds in front of us. You can see the picture. The narrator, he says the moon was coming up in the east behind me and the stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky and I was happy to be alone high up above the sleeping countryside because he started his flight very early in the night. I was flying my old Dakota, that was the name of the aeroplane. He was flying from France back to England from where it belonged. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. So this was the time when he started his journey at 1:30 a.m. After receiving the instructions, the pilot geared up and followed them while putting the last fuel tank into operation. Because what did he see that when he was going, he probably did not check his fuel tank or maybe some technical fault occurred. He was thinking about having a breakfast. When he reached his family, he was calm because everything till now was going on as per the planning. And Paris was about 150 kilometers. That means he had already crossed 150 kilometers from Paris in order to reach England. So now, when the plane had crossed Paris and he started seeing the clouds in the sky, all of a sudden, he thought it could be unsafe because there were likely chances that a storm may gather. And the clouds, they were so huge and dark that the pilot compared them with black mountains. He knew he couldn't pass them as it was impossible to go above them or escape them with the amount of fuel that was left in the last tank. For a moment he thought that he should go back to Paris, but then he thought that meeting family was more important, so he wanted to take the risk and he wanted to reach England by all means. Thus, he took the chance, he took the courage and let the plane right enter into the storm. It was so dark because of the storm that nothing was visible outside the plane. Suddenly, he saw that the compasses and the other instrument, they had stopped working because of the bad weather, and he found himself in a helpless condition. He tried to reach the control room. Paris control kept on asking for some messages if somehow he could gather some message from them. Can you hear me? There was no answer at all. The radio, because if you know, all of you know that when the pilots and other people, they fly in the airplanes or the choppers, they are always given directions from the control rooms which are there on the land. So he was continuously trying to to contact the Paris control room, but bad luck, nothing could work. He found himself lost in the storm, and found that there was no ray of hope. Suddenly, he saw another aeroplane, and the airplane had no lights on its wings, but the narrator tells us that I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turn towards me. And in such testing times, when you find another human being, you feel relieved. So similarly, the narrator also felt relieved. The pilot of the other plane lifted one of his hands and waved and cried, "Follow me." I mean, obviously couldn't hear, but the gestures were telling that he wanted the narrator to follow him. So the narrator started following him. He tried calling the Paris control room agency who had helped him earlier but couldn't connect because of the weather. So when the ray of hope that another aeroplane came, he thought that the other pilot was very kind, because he probably knew the way how to get out of the storm, and he found no harm in following the pilot, because otherwise also he had no directions where to go, which direction to move in. So slowly he started following the um, pilot of the other plane. He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota. Dakota, as we have already known, that it is the name of the plane, uh, maybe the make of the plane which the narrator was flying. So the other pilot kept on guiding him, and the narrator kept on following him in his old Dakota. Now there was only enough fuel, and this much fuel that it could only last for 5 to 10 minutes. And the narrator was feeling very frightened, because he thought, what if the fuel comes to an end before he lands? But finally, after following the second plane, the narrator found himself quite near to the land, and he found himself that there was a runway and his plane was landing very safely. He wanted to thank, obviously, he wanted to thank that another pilot who had come to his rescue like God's angel. So when he turned to thank the other pilot, he realized that the plane that helped him had disappeared as soon as he came out of the storm. So he went to the control room reception and he asked the lady receptionist who was sitting there. He said that he wanted to thank the other pilot who was flying the other plane, but the lady, when she checked through her records, she told that according to their readings and their information, that day there was no other plane in the sky except his, because of the bad weather. And he was very much astonished, surprised, because what he had observed, what he had experienced, what he had seen, how could he not believe that to be true, that he was saved by some unknown pilot and some unknown plane? But the people there at the control room, they were claiming that that night no other plane was flying. So he was astonished with a lot of questions which was still unanswered in his mind. So that's how he was saved. And sometimes strange things do happen to human beings. Some of us accept those mysterious happenings in the name of God or in the name of miracle. Sometimes we give credit to some extra celestial powers. Sometimes we feel that maybe some unknown strange angel or some messiah or some power has come to save us, but most of the time maybe it is our own inner strength, it is our own confidence, it's our own maybe resourcefulness and confidence and determination that helps us save ourselves. So whatever we assume, but one of these assumptions that I just have discussed with you could probably have been the answer who that strange pilot was, where that airplane had come, whether it really existed or not. Now, you also try to scratch your minds and try to find out the answer to this question in the next lesson. We would be discussing the question answers of the chapter. Till then, you revise it well. Thank you.